50. So I was just wondering why you feel that this is, whether it's entrepreneurial or whether it's whatever. But I mean, we're seeing people like Alexandria Cortez and the Muslim sister whose name is slipping me right now. But they're being very much activist kind of in their politics and everything, and they're basically not taking any kind of they're not taking any BS. They're kind of like saying, look, we're going to tackle y'all. Whether
you know, I say this, so I'm not a millennial. I'm like the cusp of Gen X and millennial. And, you know, there's an urgency for folks who are younger. We have so many dire issues, at least, thinking just climate change, this major, potentially, probably most likely catastrophic event, and not enough of our leadership who's older really having done enough. And so I get their fire, for lack of a better word. I understand their passion, and I think that they're ready to try. And I welcome it. It's bold leadership. I think a lot of folks think that they're radical when in many cases their ideas are just returning us to things that we've actually already done in this country, but we've veered away from since, I think, Reagan.
Right. And even Naomie, coming back to you and everything, I know you just made that remark, but that's one of the things that even with your liquor you deal with, because one of the things you pride yourself on is the fact that it's an environmental liquor. It's not just a liquor for the sake of, like a lot of the other products that have all these kind of unnatural kind of products, but you pride yourself on supporting the black farmers or the minority farmers in general, just small farmers, and you also pride yourself on the environmental element.
I mean, I think, I think that today's consumer, especially when you look at the millennials, that they're looking at how far their dollar can go beyond just the purchase. They are looking for companies and products and politicians that align with their moral compass now. So they want to know if you are socially conscious. They want to know. I mean, I tell people, I grew up in a world where my dad paid 25 cents, 50 cents for a cup of coffee. My children grew up in a world where they saw their mom pay $5, $6 for a cup of coffee from Starbucks, right? So they now, even in college, they are now, I see them buying coconut water. I see them, buying bottled water. I see them, reading and saying, oh, well, there are a lot of metals in just regular tap water. So it's important that, Mom, that we, drink, bottled water or a water alternative. And so it's just amazing to see how in tune in this knowledge space that millennials are in. And then even now how their awareness is making me more aware. Because now they're saying, okay, I'm caring about the environment, Mom. What are you doing?
Yeah, and that even comes back to something, because Javiera, like you said, you were involved definitely as an activist, but also you had thought about school board and you were involved in a lot of school issues, some around the Latin community, some not necessarily around the Latin community. Earlier, before you joined the call, we were talking about how a lot of our school system doesn't seem to be focusing on some real-world kind of things. I'm thinking, we're talking college, but I would even argue high school and junior high don't do enough job of teaching our kids about entrepreneurship. I mean, that's actually the way to go in terms of becoming financially solvent and becoming really independently wealthy. But I think that we've actually gotten away from teaching that in our school systems. I remember when there was a whole time when I was going into school in the 70s and going into college in the 80s, there was a whole track for vocational education. I don't even know if that track exists anymore.
So I think that there's a big kind of, I think sometimes, education is cyclical, especially in this country. I don't know how well that serves us in the long run. I know that in Durham there's definitely conversations, what they call career technical ed, so CTE, and really building out different programs within our high schools and really thinking through, does everyone need to go to a 4-year school? Is that necessary? What kinds of job training can we get kids in high school? I know the city now has a youth internship summer program encouraging local businesses to have them as interns over the summer and really getting kids that real-world experience and getting them excited to go into fields that maybe they weren't thinking about. So I know that there's a lot of conversation. Northern High School has a culinary arts program now. I don't know if any of you all, they make fantastic food. You can use their services as like a catering company for an event. And what they're teaching those kids up there is a valuable skill, and I think it's a fantastic program. So I've definitely seen things within DPS that are shifting towards that.
Well, that's good to know that things are shifting that way. Now, one of the other issues, and I'm just curious, this is kind of a broad-based question, and I'm curious to hear all of your thoughts on this, but one of the things, particularly Javiera, that has come up, particularly in this area, meaning Durham, North Carolina, but throughout the country, is the whole concept of gentrification. So I know that that's probably going to be an issue that comes up during your campaign, and I was just wondering what some of your thoughts are on how to combat that, and maybe some of the other guests that are from the entrepreneur side have some ideas as well.
I'm happy to go first, or happy to let Jamal or Naomie go first.
You can go first.
Yes,
okay.
Please.
Okay. So I think and this is actually going to be a robust discussion, because at the end of the day, voters are going to decide in November. So there is a plan right now to put a $95 million affordable housing bond on the November ballot. So November of 2019, and that's going to be the big, I think, push locally on how do we help combat gentrification. I think there's two parts to this. We need people to be able to afford their homes, and then the other part, which is where businesses and entrepreneurship come in, we need people to have good jobs. And so that's the other part that the city is also working through. So our Office of Workforce Development presented a plan on Friday around that as well. What is the city, local government's role in helping promote jobs in our community, so that we can answer both of those things, right? So we can keep making a lot of affordable housing, but alternatively, we also just need people to have really good jobs. And so then, what is our responsibility to, and in this case, Durham, because that's where that's the city I represent. What is our responsibility to Durham residents on that front, and what can we do to really create a city that's vibrant, that people want to be in, that people want to have their businesses in?
Somebody else want to jump in? Oh, that's the bell again. Dean, is that the bell ringing again?
Yes, sir. That's the bell ringing one more time. We got Phil McKenzie who's coming in.
Okay, cool. He's actually a fellow podcaster.
Okay.
Mr. McKenzie.
Yes, sir. How are you?
I'm doing good. We've been having a very vibrant conversation going on. We've got Jamel with Harlem Brewing. We've got Naomie Lucas with Southern Wicked Lemonade. We were just joined by Javiera Caballero, who's a appointed city council person here in Durham, but who is getting ready to run her first full campaign. This is your first full campaign, isn't it, Javiera?
Yes, it is my first full, running for actual election.
Right. So her first full campaign. And now you are joining us. And you are, I bet you on the Black Podcast Network, because you are a fellow podcaster. So we're always glad to have other podcasters join us in the conversation. So tell us a little bit about yourself and how you got into the wonderful world of podcasting.
Yeah, definitely. So it's great to be on the show. Thanks, guys, for the invitation. Basically, just a little bit about my background. I'm a cultural anthropologist and strategist. So my focus is really human-centered design and working with brands and organizations around culture, how they deal with both internal people and external people in order to promote their services, their goods, and their products, and how to do that in the most human-centric way. So, I really came to podcasting quite accidentally, as a matter of fact, in the sense that myself and my co-host at the time, Michael Brooks, were good friends. He comes from the podcasting space as well, and we decided to have a show, Two Dope Boys and a Podcast, that would basically speak to the issues that I deal with in my work. It would be a culture and insights type of show designed to just make brands and organizations smarter about how to interact with people as they go about their business.
Well, you would be interested to know that that's part of what this whole conversation has been about, because our first two guests, that's part of what they've been doing, is trying to figure out they have their brand. They have, in Naomie's case, Southern Wicked Lemonade, which is a vodka company and everything. And then in the case of Jamal, he's working with Harlem Brewing Distribution, which is working with Harlem Brewer out of New York. So they're, of course, trying to find ways to expand the brand and everything, but of course they're also running into roadblocks, and I'm sure that Javiera will also talk about that. She's, of course, even runs into roadblocks with how she has to find a way to brand herself as she running for her political office for the first time. Since the first time that she ran, since she's currently serving as an appointee, and now she's got to figure out how to brand herself in order to maintain that office.
Yeah, these are, people find branding work, it cuts across all disciplines because we're really trying to determine the best way to get our values across. So, in my particular work, it's very values based in the sense that what brings us together is going to be those shared values. And the more that organizations can make that a part of their offering, they're more likely to have success attracting new people to their brand, to their service, to their product, or even to themselves in the case of the person who's running for office. So those issues of branding and how to strategically do that is a industry-wide cross-sector challenge.
So just out of curiosity, I'm going to turn it over I'm going to ask our other three guests, since you're the branding person and you've got a podcast on branding, I'm going to let them ask you a branding question. So, Naomie, what branding question do you have for our guests, for our other guests? And the same goes for you, Jamel and Javiera, because like I said, you're going to have to totally brand yourself. So I'm going to let y'all ask him a branding question. So we'll start with you, Naomie, first. So I'm sure there's some branding question that is burning in your heart.
So how do I ask this? How would you suggest that I get over the hurdle of Christian people not liking the word wicked lemonade who actually drink? Because to me, that's hypocritical, right? I'm like, how are you going to, I even had someone on my on my Facebook page say, I really love your product, but I really suggest that you remove the word wicked because as a Christian, I actually find it offensive. And I thought, okay, that is really interesting that you love my product, you drink my product, but you are offended by the word wicked.
Yeah, I think at the end of the day, one of the things I talk about when I deal with clients and I'm giving the strategic work is I have a tagline, which is there are no sidelines. And so usually that's in the sense of larger societal issues. Nike would be a good example of that. Choosing to support Colin Kaepernick is an example of them choosing a side versus another. So in my work, I tell brands that if you're going to have a value proposition, you have to take a position. And to take that now to your example with your product, you're the one who has to, own and push out what you think is important for your brand. And with that means not everybody's going to like it. And you have to be comfortable to know that going forward, you've made a stake in the ground as to what you want to be, what your product wants to be. It's growing, it's successful. But along the way, you're not going to satisfy every critic. And that's just the name of the game, no pun intended, as it pertains to the branding piece of what you're trying to do. So I would just feel comfortable with that. It's good to get feedback and to have some critique, but you have to decide ultimately whether or not that critique is valuable. Because what you don't want to have is every time someone says something, you're blowing with every wind. Because then you'll never be able to build a brand if you're changing it all the time because someone didn't like this or someone didn't like that.
Yeah, no, I just looked at it and I just told my team, I said, just remain silent because, and then, as a Southern girl, I said, my grandmother used to say, if you don't have anything nice to say, don't say anything at all. So we just, took it and we just moved on from it. But I think at some point we are going to have to give an account. And, my thing is, the word wicked has nothing to do with someone's religious, bent. It is a word that simply, it really explains the experience of my alcohol, that if you drink too much of my lemonade that tastes like a lemonade, you're going to, maybe become another person because, and we call that being wicked, so maybe you might, be, more freer in, trying things or, experiencing